Welcome students, this is your skills review 4. This is going to be due on the first day of the second 6 weeks, which I believe is 10/6. It's going to be after your fair day on Tuesday. Okay. Alright, we're starting in to talk about slope and intercepts. We touched a little bit on intercepts at the end of last 6 weeks, but we're going to start into the slope and then get full into the intercepts. Here you're presented with 3 problems. They're all linear. Lira, mark, and yen, and their money is all getting bigger. It's all going uphill. They start at different amounts. You can see one starts down here, one starts there, one starts there. When we hear the word start, that's the same as y-intercept. So start equals your y-intercept. Okay? The slope of the line is how it goes up or down. It's your rise and run that you learned back in middle school. The words that we use for slope are steep and flat. Okay? As we look across this, it looks like, kind of hard to tell, but it looks like Lira may be the steepest, mark may be the flattest, and yen's probably in between the two. Questions A and B ask you about starting, so we're going to look at who started with the most and who started with the least. So you're going to look at those dots that I put on there, and you're just going to answer, and your explanation would be telling how much each one of them started with. C and D has to do with their slope because it's talking about which one's going up the fastest. Okay? So this is going to be a steep graph, and this is going to be a flatter graph. So take a look at that, see if you can pick out which ones would go with which ones. Okay. It says the number of miles represented on a map varies directly. Anytime we see this word varies directly, this is a proportional problem. You learned about proportions back in middle school. You put number up here, number down here, number over here, and usually a letter over here, and some of you call it the butterfly, but it's called cross multiplication. You would do 1 times x is 1x, 3 times 5 is 15, divide both sides by 1, and x is 15. So that's just an example of cross multiplication. You're going to do that with this problem on the scale. Put your centimeters on top and your miles on bottom, and then just go and pull out your numbers from the problem, and the one you don't know, that'll be your x. So go ahead and set that up and solve it just like you would back in middle school. Alright, this streets and alleys had you finding the slope from place to place and then reducing that fraction. On the back here we're going to do number 7, number 11, number 13, and number 14. Even though you didn't have to do number 14, I think it's worth talking about. So number 7 says we're going to go from Fred to Tom. So Fred to Tom. So I'm going to find Fred and find Tom, and then I connect them with a line. And it doesn't matter whether it says F to T or T to F. We told you in class, and even at the bottom of this page, that we always start with the left dot. So we're going to start right here with the left dot. And we count up or down first. So we're going up 2, so that's positive. And we're going over 3, and that's positive, and so our slope would be up 2 over 3, and that is reduced. So 2/3 is your slope. We rise 2, we run 3. And let's try number 11. 11 says from John to Mario. John to Mario. So I need to find John, Mario. Yep. The major thing I notice about this line is that it is going downhill, and that's going to change the slope to be a negative number. So I go down, and that's down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, down 6. You count spaces. Then we go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over 5. So our slope is down 6 over 5, and that is reduced also down 6 over 5. So negative 6/5 is the answer to that one. And 13 says from Fred to Vivian. So I find Fred and I find Vivian, and there is theirs. We rise down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we go down 5, but we don't go over any, so over 0. Okay? If you were to type this in your calculator and try to reduce it, you would get an error message. You're not allowed to divide by 0, so when we have a vertical line, this is said to be undefined. Undefined. Number 14. From George to Sarah. So George and Sarah are right there. Okay. So we don't rise at all on this one, so our rise is 0, but our run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Our run is 5. And 0 can be divided by 5. 0 divided by 5 is 0, so this is said to have 0 slope. Okay. We taught you in class, and some of you learned in middle school last year about slope face. That's a positive slope. That's a negative slope. His nose, that's undefined. And his mouth, that's a 0 slope. Okay. Hopefully this jogs your memory on how to do slope. We'll continue on with this discussion on Tuesday in class.